My name is Andrés Valderrama, and I am the program coordinator of the Masters in Sustainable Design Engineering. I am sorry I cannot give you welcome to the program in person, but I am currently in Colombia in a trip that is related to a research project that is finishing this week. So that prevents me from being with you, but I will come by next week and say hello to all of you personally and maybe expand on some of the ideas I'm going to express to you right now. I want you to focus on the following aspects to become excellent master students and get the most out of this program. First one is to cultivate scholarship. This master's program is an academic master's program. It's no coincidence that in Danish it is called to read, at lese, and candidate. So that's what this is all about. So if you want to be an excellent student, you have to cultivate the ability to read and extract from scientific journals, reports, the press, books, all sorts of documents, relevant information for your project and for your courses. And this is something you have to cultivate every day. I personally strive for reading at least one article every day in the morning, which is my sharpest moment, and that really helps me to come forward in my projects. The second one is that this program is in English. Many of you have just finished your program in Bæredygtig Design Engineer in Danish, and that's quite remarkable. But now you have to do a lot of things in English. And I'm afraid in 7 years we've been working with many students, including students coming from English-speaking countries. It is a challenge. It is a challenge because it is about cultivating the ability to talk and to express yourself in written form in English, and that requires work. One way of connecting these two requirements is to read articles and documents or whatever, and then writing very short abstracts, capturing the main idea of those documents in English. That's a way of cultivating both scholarship and English. Actually, Bruno Latour, who is one of our most important academic inspirational figures, recommended that one should write every day to keep the hand warm. And that's also something that many writers say. So cultivate scholarship and English. Aalborg University, it's a different university from many of universities in the world. One of the main aspects it has is that everything here is very collectively oriented, and that also reflects some of the spirit of the Danish culture. But that is not easy. It requires that you commit yourself to the group, and that implies that every day you should be thinking, what do I have to offer to the group? It doesn't mean that you have to read and write and do everything together. It means that you have to have the ability to have some productive meetings where you all discuss what is needed and then delegate to each member a task to read something or to get some information or to produce something and then bring it back to the group. So if you are committed to the group, you are thinking every day, what am I going to do today to offer to my group? That's the way of thinking we have to cultivate there. And it is one of the most appreciated abilities in the working market. Companies, organizations, even startups need people that are able to commit to working in groups. This also means that you might be used to or have been missing more individual way of learning. But given that, and you will have some reflections in your course about this, that knowledge and what comes out of knowledge, applied knowledge and design are collective endeavors. So it makes a lot of sense to embrace the ways of collective learning. The way we do it in our program is that we ask from you, and we also produce in our own projects, working sheets. And working sheets are ways of you know, assembling and putting into a way that it's shareable in the group and with your supervisor, and maybe during the exam with the external examinator, the knowledge you have been collecting. So cultivate the ability of doing excellent working sheets that are a mixture of text and visuals that can express a unit of knowledge, something you have learned using whatever method you have decided. This is also an ability that it's very particular to the kind of professional you are. Also, other professionals like designers and architects are able to do this, but it is something that will land you a job quite quickly if you become good at it. If you are the person that in any meeting are able to say, I will take notes for this meeting, and you can do it visually on top of that, then you're going to be noticed, and future employers might say, I want to have this person working with me. And finally, you're going to have a lot of courses. We're going to throw you a lot of literature. You're going to have to decide what to read, what not to read, what to read in depth, what to read quickly. And you have to define some criteria to select and really go deep into some of core issues. And I would say you are studying to become sustainable design engineers. You have to be experts in what sustainability means and how it's used, how it's discussed, and who is really committed to honest, sustainable future, and who is just using it for greenwashing or other purpose. So that means, and it's also related to the scholarship and to the other aspects I'm telling to you about in a moment, you have to be able to identify the main text, the main sources to discuss sustainability, and also be able to cross-reference them, right? So it is important to know what the Brundtland report is and what does it say about sustainability. It's important to know what the Earth Charter is and what it says about sustainability. It's important to know where does the Sustainable Development Goals come from and why are they so vexed and discussed. It's also important to know what for example, Johan Rockström from the Planetary Boundaries initiative in Stockholm says about the Sustainable Development Goals, and so on and so forth. That is a way of becoming experts in the field of sustainability. If you don't have that clear in your projects, then you are not going to be able to do sustainable design projects. The second area of expertise obviously is design. Design, as for example Enzo Mancini puts it, has this continuum between being an expert, like this figure that it's recognized in its signature, it's what makes something valuable, like these famous architects or these famous designers, or the post-it designer. And then in between you have all sorts of different styles and ways of doing design. Sustainable design engineering is from the outset collective. We do not educate people that are going to become these famous figures. We educate people that are going to become key drivers in collective processes, right? And that places you somewhere in between these two extremes. But you have to be able to justify, to know what the kind of designer you are, and to communicate the value it has. And for that, you have to read about design. There are a number of works out there that are very, some older, some newer, that are very important to that you read them and that you can refer to them. You can even cite them to justify the type of designer you are and the value that conveys. And finally, engineering. It's also very important as the other two things. We live in a world that is driven by engineers. But any engineer you meet is a specialist in some area, right? And your specialty is going to be sustainable design, but you're also going to be an engineer. You're going to be capable of using certain quantitative methods to contribute to a discussion. And that requires that you understand what is an engineer, what engineering is about, what are the limitations of other engineers, and how to place yourself on this discussion of who is a real engineer and who's not. My personal view, being trained as a mechanical engineer and now being educator of sustainable design engineers, is that engineers are all limited. They have certain speciality, but there is no overall engineer that can do everything. Some of them are trained to be more competent at group work and collaborating interdisciplinary, but many are not. And so don't be nervous about it, but be conscious about it. And that also means reading and getting to know how to relate to other engineers and how to collaborate with different specialties. So this for now. I'll come by, as I said, to say hello next week. And I hope you enjoy your stay in Denmark and at Aalborg University. I just, a couple of months ago, we just said goodbye to the first cohort I took out as coordinator, and I'm really happy to see the results of all the exciting things you're going to do during these 2 years. Bye for now. See you next week.